This was a couple of months ago, but it's still something that has sent me into a panic thinking about, as I always listen and read these kinds of stories every night before bed. It may seem little to others, but to me it's the reason I want to get a firearm, and have purchased a stun gun and various weapons to keep safe at night when alone. As a young female in the middle of a city, I try to be cautious of my surroundings, but sometimes I accidentally let my guard down, which I did this very night. I was hanging out with my best friend. We decided we wanted to get some shopping done at a local thrift store by my house. This area itself is somewhat shady, but usually just full of harmless homeless people who won't do you or anyone any harm. It was getting dark by the time we parked and headed inside. While looking and trying on clothes, which is something my best friend loves to do, I noticed her behavior was kinda off. I asked her a couple times what's wrong as we went through the store, but didn't really get a response. I tried to brush her off behavior to the side and enjoy our time together. She seemed jumpy and creeped out. It's pretty obvious as to why she was acting this way, but looking back on it now, I completely understand why she was acting this way. I finally got the hint when she wanted to leave, so we decided to go ahead and not buy anything and head out. She begins to speed walk to her car, and one quick sentence tells me to run and get inside the car now. Me still being oblivious to what is going on, I stopped and looked behind me, only to see what looked like a homeless man with multiple face masks on, mumbling nonsense while somewhat running in a shuffle towards me. I was immediately frozen and in panic. By this time my friend had swung herself into the car and started in. Everything kinda hit me, and I began to run to the passenger side and jump into the car. This man continues to speak nonsense and looks intent on getting to us. My little heart was beating so fast I couldn't even think. He bangs on my window and then angrily goes to my friend's side and tries to open her door. We were lucky that our car automatically locks, because if he got in, I generally don't know what he would have tried to do to us, as we were both small and young and he seemed quite big and strong, and just all around creepy. There was a couple minutes of us frantically looking around the lot, then collecting what had just happened and talking. Still looking for the man that seemingly disappeared after she had yelled at him, and called the cops to let them know what went down. I asked my friend if this is why she was acting so weird before, and she said yes. She began to also tell me the man was apparently following us through the whole store, and I had not noticed doing to be so blissfully ignorant of my surroundings. If she had not noticed this creepy masked man following us, we might not have made it home that night. I don't know what his intentions were, but this creepy encounter is not one I want to experience again. The fact that he was stalking us through the store just sends chills down my spine. If it had just been me, I probably would have never noticed. This was not only creepy, but insanely traumatic to me. I thought it was pretty crazy that I experienced something I read about every night. This happened years ago in 2017. I was 22 at the time and living out in my car with my dog. We were in Idaho visiting a friend. We had college during the day, so I usually just drove around until he could hang out. This time I decided to drive to a state park 40 minutes out of the city, just because it looked beautiful online and I love nature. It was just a sunset, and when I first drove in, there were only 2 cars left. They were parked near each other and belonged to 2 guys who looked like dads just shooting the shit. Being homeless and introverted, I parked on the very edge of the parking lot nearest to the water. I felt okay while they were there, but as soon as I parked, the 2 dads left. I was then alone in the park, and it was just after sunset. Since I had my dog with me, a Pomeranian, my very best friend at the time, I decided to walk her along the water's edge. After a few minutes of being outside, another car pulled into the lot. Since it was getting dark, the headlights immediately caught my eye. At first I didn't care. It was a public state park and there was a whole ass empty parking lot. I started to get uneasy when they parked adjacent to me. Trying to soothe my anxiety, I just told myself that maybe it's because they felt better parking next to someone else. Then 2 men stepped out of the car, were staring right at me. They were whispering to each other and wouldn't take their eyes off me. The hair on the back of my neck stood up and my paranoia got the best of me in the moment. I rushed my dog to the car. As soon as I got inside, I locked the doors and started to drive out towards the exit. But I wanted to take photos, so I decided I was truly overreacting and drove to the other end of the park. That's when I realized the 2 men had started up the car again and were following me. Having absolutely none of that shit, I drove as fast as I could out of the park, sped all the way to the nearest busy shopping area, and camped down in McDonald's parking lot until I felt sure they didn't follow me. Maybe I did overreact. I'm just glad I didn't take any chances. The first house my parents bought was on acres of land, an old dirt logging road in the middle of the woods. It was me, my brother, mom and dad, in the small house pretty isolated in the thick forest. My brother and I loved this place. There was a network of old logging roads that were great for bike riding. Our closest neighbor was at the beginning of the logging road, about a quarter of a mile from our house. The neighbor's house sat on a large green lawn. There was plenty of sunshine up that end of the road. The beginning of the road, lots of open space. A swimming pool, sunshine, and happiness. But we would drive past that, and quickly the forest would swallow us. Our front lawn was small and saw little sunlight. Our backyard was forest and another logging road. Sometimes my father would need to spend a few nights away for work. I always noticed how Dad would leave the loaded shotgun under the bed for Mother, for when he'd be gone away. A grim reminder, this world has teeth. One day we drove past the sunny bright start of our logging road to our house. Forget if it was my mother or father who was driving. They were both in the car, and both saw something or heard something. Something alarmed them. As our vehicle pulled into the driveway, my dad told us all to stay inside the vehicle. He quickly entered our home and investigated whatever it was that got him and Mom's attention. Later that night, I heard Dad tell Mom they ran out the back of the garage when they heard us pull in. Not long after that incident, my dad was gone for the night. I didn't mind nights Dad was gone. I got used to him. This night was different though. My brother and I were watching TV. In the background, at the periphery of our consciousness, my mother frantically called a family friend who lived across town. The call was brief, and when it was over, Mom told me and my brother to get our jackets on and go straight to the car. She was serious, direct. My mother was scared. The mood was real and very damp with dread. We left our house and drove to my friend's home. Mom didn't talk to me or my brother about what happened, but that night we stayed at the friend's house, and I heard my mother say to her friend, who was in our yard, standing by the swing set. When I was in 11th grade, I had a taxi driver who drove me to school and dropped me off at home every day. He seemed nice at first, and we would always have some pretty good conversations. The next few weeks, he was actually one of my favorite people. Just seemed like a cool guy in general. Then one day, things started to get a bit weird. He started telling me stories about what happens to girls on dark web videos, and I stayed completely silent, because what the actual fuck? Then he gave me a pair of his glasses, made me try them on and everything. Actually made me try on several pairs. Even put his hand on my leg multiple times, and actually had the audacity to give me his number and Facebook, complete without me prompting it. Let me just remind you all, at this time I was 17, and this dude was in his 40s, with a wife and kids too. Along with that, he kept begging me to let him teach me karate at his house. So all those things kept happening over the course of about a month. The tipping point was when he actually sent me a message on Facebook telling me about how beautiful I looked in a picture. I told my parents, which I should have done ages before that, and I blocked him. My parents proceeded to call the taxi company to report him. The kicker is that particular taxi service was specifically for minors going to school. About a month goes by after that, I got a different driver who was much better and not creepy at all. Things were fine until I walked out of school one day. The creepy taxi driver was right there in the parking lot. His car was waiting for me. But because I didn't know it was him, I went right up to the car to get in. Obviously, when I saw his face, I stopped myself and said, "Sorry, I forgot something," and ran back into the school. He didn't look normal that day either. His eyes were red as he'd been on drugs, and his beard was completely full when he always kept it shaved. He kept making strange grunting noises in the few seconds I was there. My parents were obviously furious that he showed up and called the taxi company again. The manager of the company said that it was probably just an accident in their system. But I don't believe them at all. I feel like if I'd gotten that car that day, I would have been kidnapped or hurt for sure. I go to my apartment gym every morning. I've been seeing this oldish guy with his mangy dog. The first encounter I had with him was when I was walking back home. He was walking a couple paces away, and although I first thought he was just going to walk past me, I realized as he gets closer, he was walking straight at me. Like at me. It sent chills down my spine, but I assumed he was high or crazy, so I dodged and ran home. I didn't see him for the next few weeks. Then I started to see him more often, so often that I began to think that he was following me or something. The gym has big windows, so you can look outside while you exercise, and there's a pool right outside with a gate. One day the dude was just walking back and forth just beyond the gate with his dog. Just walk a few paces right, and then turn around and strolling left. He'd circle around the building and come back. I may not have thought much of this if not for the first encounter. The next day, he proceeds to stand in front of the litter bag dispenser and start pulling out a bunch of bags, while staring at me. His dog was just standing there. At first I pretend not to notice, but I mean, you have to look up at some point, so I stared him down. He left. For the next few weeks, and I see him walking as I'm walking back home. I make eye contact with him more often than I'd like. I purposely take different routes, but it's kinda limited, so I keep seeing him. Today I was working out in gym and caught a glimpse of him appearing and disappearing, so finally I'm annoyed. Not even scared anymore, because what is he gonna do in broad daylight? Well, I don't know actually, but my irritation overtook any other emotion. I decided to start video recording when I was walking home so I could catch him on camera. After a few minutes, I passed the point where I normally spot him, but didn't see anything, so I put the phone away. I was walking a little more when I felt weird. I glanced behind me and saw his figure, half covered by a tree, so I took out my phone again, pulled up the camera, held it right in front of my face, began filming, and spun around. He was standing there, completely still in the middle of the driveway, just looking at me. I don't know why I did this, but I started walking straight towards him. When he finally realized I was filming him, he turned around and started walking away, which is funny though because the direction he was going is a dead end. I immediately sprinted away. There's still nothing I can do but hope I don't see him around. I know this may not sound scary because nothing happened, but I hate the feeling when I make eye contact with him and he gives off bad vibes.